So, reading from the Nectar of Devotion. Devotional service and friendship. Devotional service and friendship can be divided into two categories. The first is to act as the confidential servant of the Lord, and the other is to act as the well-wisher of the Lord. The devotee who has confidence in devotional service to the Lord systematically follows the rules and regulations with the faith that he will achieve the platform of transcendental life. The second type of devotional friendship is to become a well-wisher of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said, the Lord accepts a preacher as the most dear servant. Anyone who is preaching the confidential message of the Gita to the people in general is so dear to Krishna that no one can equal him in human society. That's interesting, isn't it? So there's two. Devotional service in friendship is divided into two categories. The first is to act as the confidential servant, and the other is to act as the well-wisher. So the devotee that follows all the rules and regulations, Vaidhi Bhakti, he achieves the platform of transcendental. The second type is to become a well-wisher. That's interesting, isn't it? The distinction is, if you're a preacher, then you're a well-wisher. So obviously, if you're giving out Srila Prabhupada's books, then you're considered to be in the second category. Because you're a well-wisher. So that's interesting, because generally people, they want to show how much they love God and push everybody else out the way. But if you really want to show how much you love God, then if you're a well-wisher of God, then you know, well, God's concern is to help the suffering souls. So if you go out to do that, then you please him more. Which is not how the Kanishta thinks. The Kanishta, he thinks, well, there's God, I'll serve him nicely. And these other things that are around me are very annoying, but I'll just try and steer through them all and navigate my way back to God. God's okay, but everybody else is really annoying. But if you really want to please God, then all those annoying objects, you have to give them Prabhupada's books, or if they're devotees, you have to learn how to cultivate relationships with them. And then you become a well-wisher, rather than just an official devotee following the rules and regulations. And also you'll find it hard to follow the rules and regulations if you don't become a well-wisher. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasu Caitanya Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktarinda Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktarinda. Reading from Caitanya Charitamrta Madhya chapter 20. This section is called The Lord Instructs Sanatana Goswami. And we're on text 360. Okay, 360 is 066. Prabhu Kahi Chata Ali Chada Sanatana. Oh, this one is, okay. I'll just run through it then. Shaktivesha Tavatara Shuna Vivarana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, oh, Sanatan, you must give up your intelligent tricks. Now just try to understand the description of the Shaktivesha avatar. So what's the intelligent trick? You remember what the intelligent trick was? Yeah. If you didn't catch that, he was trying to trick Lord Chaitanya into saying he was an avatar, he was an incarnation. Who's the avatar for this age? He's standing right in front of Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya wasn't. And why was Lord Chaitanya reluctant to admit that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead?
Because you can apply, and also the incarnation doesn't say that he's the incarnation.
Because so many people would imitate, and even though he said he wasn't, so many people did imitate anyway. So many of them. So, foreseeing that, he wanted to avoid it. Shakta Vaishavatara Krishnara Ashanka Ganana Digadashana Kuru Mukhya Jana. There are unlimited Shakta Vaish avatars of Lord Krishna. Let me describe the chief among them. So I'll read the next few. Empowered incarnations are of two types, primary and secondary. The primary ones are directly empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are called incarnations. The secondary ones are indirectly empowered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are called vibhuti. Some Shaktivesh avatars are the four Kumaras, Narad, Maharaj Prithu, and Parashuram. When a living being is empowered to act as Lord Brahma, he is also considered a Shaktivesh avatar. So these posts are all occupied by the jivas. What's the difference between the jiva tattva, and Vishnu tattva? There's two qualities there. Well, there's many qualities, but there's two main qualities that the Vishnu tattva has that the jiva tattva doesn't. Abhigya and Swarat. Abhigya is independent, so he can walk up to a cliff, then he can walk off it, and the law of gravity won't apply. He can just stay up in the air. And Swarat is that he's conscious of everything going on in the entire creation. Swarat, whereas the jiva is only conscious of what's going on in his body, and even that is very limited. We're not aware of how many hairs are growing on our head, how the food is being digested from last night, when we're next going to need to use the toilet. We're aware of what's going in our body, but in a very limited way. Whereas Vishnu tattva is like completely perfectly conscious, no lack of memory, nothing that it's not aware of. So then we go into 370. 370's got a purport? No, okay. Lord Shesh, in the spiritual world of Vaikuntha, and in the material world, Lord Ananta, who carries innumerable planets on his hoods, are two primary empowered incarnations. There is no need to count the others, for they are unlimited. The power of knowledge was invested in the four Kumaras, and the power of devotional service was invested in Narad. The power of creation was invested in Lord Brahma, and the power to carry innumerable planets was invested in Lord Ananta. The Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, there's a tiny purport after this. So that's the next big one, yeah? Okay, so I'll just run through these then. The Supreme Personality of Godhead invested the power of personal service to Lord Shesha, and he invested the power to rule the earth to King Prithu. Lord Parasham received the power to kill rogues and miscreants. Purport Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Patrinaya Sadhunam Vinashaya Chatushkritam. Sometimes the Lord invests his power to rule in a king like Prithu, and enables such a king to kill rogues and miscreants. He also invests his power in incarnations like Parashuram. Whenever the Lord is present in someone by portions of his various potencies, the living entity representing the Lord is called a Shaktavesh avatar. That is, an incarnation invested with special power. So Shakta is energy, and Avesh means to be dressed. So you are dressed in the energy of the Lord, especially empowered. This verse is found in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita. As explained in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has spread himself all over the universe in many personalities through specific powers known as Vibhuti. Purport: the expansion of specific Maya powers is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam 2.7.39. Know that all opulent, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. Purport. This is a statement made by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 10:41. So that's after Krishna shows he explains all his opulences, he said, but what need is there of all this detailed information? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. Is that the end of chapter 11? 10, yeah. But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge with a single fragment of myself, I support this entire universe? Yeah, 1042, okay. Thus I have explained specifically empowered incarnations. Now please hear about the characteristics of Lord Krishna's childhood, boyhood, and youth. As the son of Maharaj Nanda, Lord Krishna is by nature the paragon of Kishore, youth. He chooses to exhibit his pastimes at that age. Before his personal appearance, the Lord causes some of his devotees to appear as his mother, father, and intimate associates. He then appears later as if he were taking birth and growing from a baby to a child and gradually into a youth. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is eternally enjoying himself, and he is the shelter of all kinds of devotional service. Although his ages are various, his age known as Kishore, pre-youth, is the best of all. This verse is found in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2163. Shishi Kodanitai Mai Poshashi Ki Jai. When Lord Krishna appears, from moment to moment, he exhibits his different pastimes, beginning with the killing of Putana. All these pastimes are eternally being demonstrated, one after another. The consecutive pastimes of Krishna are being manifested in one of the innumerable universes, moment after moment. There is no possibility of counting the universes, but in any case, some pastime of the Lord is being maintained at every moment in one universe or another. So right now, somewhere, Krishna is lifting Govardhan Hill in some of the universe, maybe in a few universes. Thus, the Lord's pastimes are like the flowing Ganges water. In this way, all the pastimes are manifested by the son of Nanda Maharaj. Okay, 384. Should we go through this, or shall I just say it? Krame Balya Poganda Kosarata Prapti Rasa Adi Lila Kari Kishore Nityastiti. Lord Krishna exhibits his pastimes of childhood, boyhood, and pre-youth. When he reaches pre-youth, he continues to exist eternally to perform his rasa dance and other pastimes. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The comparison made here is very interesting. Krishna does not grow like an ordinary human being, even though he exhibits his pastimes of childhood, boyhood, and pre-youth. When he reaches the age of pre-youth, Kaishore, he does not grow any older. He simply remains in this Kaishore age. He is therefore described in the Brahma Samhita 5:33 as Navayovana. Advaitamachuttamanadamanantarupam ajyam parusha purusham navayovanam cha vadeshu durlabam sudurlabam atmabhakto govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. This Navayovana or pre-youth is the eternal transcendental form of Krishna. Krishna never grows older than Navayovana. Okay, so we're on 385 for the next one. So the nature of Krishna is he's eternally youthful, and his pastimes of childhood, boyhood, youth are displayed here in Boma, in the Prakat, and then the Aprakat. He's always in this Kaishore age. So what's interesting, when Krishna, Lord Brahma stole away the cowhead boys and the calves. And so what Krishna did was he expanded himself. And when all those boys and calves went back, Balaram noticed that the mothers were unusually more affectionate towards these, which is interesting because sometimes you can see a deity and you think, well, you know, I like that deity, but I don't like that one so much. Or I like that painting of Krishna, but And they're all different. All the paintings of Krishna, all the deities are different. But because they're all Krishna, then they're all especially attractive. So even though the cowhead boys didn't look like Krishna, still the mothers were attracted to them, which shows that it's transcendental. And this quality that Krishna has of being ever fresh, this manifests in his deity form, in his paintings, and all his expansions. So, of course, Krishna is inconceivable, and we just want to adopt the means by which Krishna becomes kind to us. We become his well-wisher. We think, okay, Krishna is up there in the spiritual world. He's in anxiety because some of his parts and parcels have left him. He wants them to come back to him, back to Godhead. Back to Godhead would imply going back to something that you've come from. There's an interesting article about that, actually. I can share with you. But it's... anyway, so Krishna wants us all back with him. Radharani, she's in anxiety. She's the compassion of Krishna, his compassion personified. And Lord Caitanya is in the mood of Radharani. So he wants to give everybody. And by doing that, nothing is more pleasing to Krishna than to bring a soul back to him. So one time, one of Prabhupada's disciples, Rameshwar Prabhu, he was saying in a class, Sankirtan is just like manjaris taking flowers. And so some of the devotees thought, I think he's becoming a bit of a sahaja. So they took it to Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada said, yes, that's correct. So, we had devotees talking about manjari bhav, put a dhoti on and go rolling around the floor. That's not how you get it. If you want it, then you put a book bag on and you go out and you approach people and you try and bring them back to Krishna. That's what the manjaris are doing. Because, they're picking flowers all the time, and all these fallen souls are like flowers that have fallen from the spiritual world. And of all the flowers that you can find in the material world, if you can bring a soul back to Krishna, that is the most beautiful flower. That is the most pleasing for him, And kind of unintentionally, we've stumbled across this Sankirtan movement, and we're becoming aware of what compassion looks like, how Srila Prabhupada gave everything to bring this message to us. And then naturally, we need to reciprocate. We're indebted to Srila Prabhupada for taking the time to come here, write the books, and undergo so much austerity. And the only way we can reciprocate with that is to try and give those books out. Study the books, understand and apply the books, and give those books out to others. And we speed up the process by acting as a well-wisher of Krishna. Any questions or comments? I'm not hearing anything, so you'll have to turn the volume up. Yeah, they're all different that I've seen so far. They all have different kinds of moods. If you see the deities of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's in Mayapur, Radharani looks really really strict, and the Radharani, to me, in Radhalandinishvara, she looks very loving, very motherly. So they all have particular aspects, particular moods, and yet they're all Radharani. And the deities reveal themselves when we dedicate ourselves. When we give ourselves, then the deities reciprocate by showing that they're really there. I remember I was on traveling Sankirtan at the Mana. This was years ago. And for that week, I really wanted to try hard. And when we got back, we paid our obeisances to Radha Gokunalanda. And I never forget, it was just like a special mercy. Just like, wow, it just looked like the spiritual world, and everything looked alive, actually, not just the deities, but all the flowers and decorations on the deities looked alive as well. So I was thinking, okay, so that's how the deities reciprocate. You decide, I'm going to make a special effort to please you. And they show that they've acknowledged that. by revealing themselves to some degree. And sometimes the deities can seem very distant, and sometimes Srila Prabhupada can seem happy, sometimes he looks angry, depending on what you've been doing, how you've been behaving. And also the holy name is also a deity of sound, and the holy name can be offended. If you offend somebody, then generally the person will step back from you. So if the holy name is offended, then when you're chanting, you'll find it very difficult to connect, to stay focused and fixed on the holy name. It's only by mercy that we can hear the holy name and connect to the holy name, you know. And the first challenge is, can you be attentive for 12 seconds? That's dharana. And then dhyana is, can you be attentive for 144 seconds? That's when you start becoming absorbed. And then if you can be attentive for 28 minutes, that's samadhi. Imagine that for half an hour straight, there's nothing going on when you're chanting 4 rounds and there's no other thought, just the sound of Krishna's names, one after the other. That's samadhi. Then you go into then you lose. So although we're connected to the material energy by the false ego, after half an hour of spiritual sound vibration, then you can be disconnected. But for most of us, it'll take a lifetime to get to the point of being able to focus for 28 minutes with nothing else coming in. It takes a few years just to concentrate for 5 minutes, even for 5. If you can hear 5 minutes of the Maha Mantra, you'll be pretty fired up. Just 5 minutes. We chanted for 2 hours to try and get 5 minutes of attentive. And usually the 5 minutes attentive is 1 mantra here, 20 mantras, 1 mantra there, 30 mantras, 1 mantra there. And then you add it all up. And maybe if you're lucky, it's 5 minutes. And that's the challenge, because all the disturbance we experience on Sankirtan is via the mind. So if you're no longer identifying with the mind, you're just observing it, and the mind is moaning as usual. It's always moaning about something. It's even moaning if it's got nothing to moan about, the mind. And it's referred to as a constant stream. And in that example, it said that it's only when you go deep on the ocean bed that you're not disturbed anymore. You're aware of it. It's like a trickle, but it's so insignificant. And you've gone so deep on the seabed that it's very peripheral, has no real bearing on what you're doing, you know. And Krishna consciousness is very, very deep, you know. It's so deep that we shouldn't. I mean, can you imagine, right? You've fallen in love with this beautiful woman, or man, if you're a woman, and you've been away at war for 3 years, and you're coming back, and you step off the train and you get a glimpse of the woman you love more than anything else, and then she sees you, and you're locked, and then you're just going towards Marilyn, and Marilyn's just going towards you, and then somebody says, excuse me, do you know you got a hole in your sock? Or do you know what George was doing to Bert yesterday? Or do you think there was too much sugar in the halva on the Sunday feast? It's like, it's just got no consequences. Just get out the way. I'm going towards Marilyn. You know, and as you get closer, it gets more intense. So that's when you're chanting from the heart. And if you're chanting on the mental platform, then all these other things are really important. They're distracting you because you've not connected, you've not aligned with the significance of what's going on here, you know. And Sankirtan is really just an expansion of what your japa is like. So if you find Sankirtan really difficult, then you have to look at your japa. And if you're finding Sankirtan really easy, then you have to look at your japa, you know. If you're chanting the holy name really attentively, then there's no fear And the fear is what causes all the problem on Sankirtan, because when you're afraid and you approach somebody, then they become afraid. They're thinking, what's he going to do to me? You know, you're like, excuse me. And it's like, what's he going to pull out of his bag? You know, he looks really scared. Maybe it's going to be a machete or a machine gun. And you're like, you know, so they respond to your fear. Now, if you're very confident and you're very happy, and then people are very attracted to thinking, wow, I don't know what it is he's going to do to me, but it must be really good because he looks so happy about it. You know, the guy's glowing. You know, whatever it is he's into, I want some of it. You know, I mean, and you know, the of all the things you'll remember on Sankirtan, when you look back over all your Sankirtan experiences, it's not the how huge the donation is that you remember, but it's how deep the connection goes when you meet somebody, you know. There was a guy yesterday, 27, he's been in and out of lunatic asylums and different things because he's unusually strange, you know, and the way the system reacts to nonconformity as they categorize you in one. Anyway, he's gone through all that, and he's actually one of the most sane guys you could ever meet, you know. My friend at school, Billy Bremner, he was super clever, but because he didn't want to conform and he wouldn't run for the carrot that they were dangling in front of him, he got low grades because he wouldn't apply himself. But he was very, very intelligent, you know. That's the problem. People that are intelligent, they slip through the educational system because they're not interested, they're not motivated. So speaking to this guy, and he's just coming across things that he's intuitively realized about following the principles, about not being the body. And God showed himself to him when he was very young, and then since then God has stepped away to make him become determined. And it's like, although he's not been doing it in Krishna consciousness, he's on the same type of journey that we've been on. You know, we've maybe had some glimpse, some nice taste when we first got interested. Now Krishna's stepping back, and he wants to see us be determined now to push toward him, you know, without any encouragement, without any ecstasies or nice pleasures. Are we still determined? And that's building up our faith, you know. And so everything just stopped. Buchanan Street just disappeared, and I'm just in this space with this soul, this sincere soul, you know. And he's taking the books like anything. And he texted me last night. He says, "Can I give you more? I want to send you more." So I gave him the bank details. He wants to stay in touch. He'll visit here. I said after Christmas so that we can get the marathon out the way. So he's cultivatable, you know. And because we're the first person that connected him to Krishna consciousness, if he goes back to Godhead, we go back automatically. So you really increase your chances. The more you go out and start people off on their spiritual paths, the more you multiply your chances of going back. Because maybe you're a numpty, maybe you can't get anything together, but one of the people you give the books to will. When they go home, then they take you back automatically, you know, because that's what Krishna will say when he comes into the spiritual world. They say, who gave you the book? Oh, it was a guy called Rainus. Rainus? Oh, yeah, there he is. He's a sannyasi now. Okay. That's Rainus then. He's definitely going back. So that's what goes on. So that's why it's good to do books and make your focus. I want to meet that person. That person's waiting, and Krishna wants to send one of his messengers, one of his well-wishers. So he can send you to the right person. You just have to be willing, you know, for Krishna to use you. That's the other amazing thing about Sankirtan is you realize Krishna's using you. It's like, wow, not only does he acknowledge that I'm trying to be his devotee, but he's actually going to use me in his plan. He's going to send me over to this person, and he's going to put this idea in my mind to say this, and it's going to totally fire the person up, you know. How intimate is that somebody can use you and then control what you're going to say to the person? That's very confidential, isn't it? You know, I mean, how intimate is that? Even if you really loved, you know, you're married to your wife and you loved her like anything, you can never have that type of deep connection where she knows exactly what to make you say, you know, and send you somewhere to have something auspicious take place. You can only get that with Krishna. Yes?
The other day I was having a day of birth and I thought it was so good. And I just sat around doing some chanting and some drunkard came up and started talking and then he took a book and gave a donation. So I was just thinking, in terms of being critical for Krishna, does that mean that we're just in the right place at the right time and we have to also endeavor, like make some big effort? And what does it exactly mean? What do we need to do to be?
Yeah. Well, it's counterintuitive to endeavor not to endeavor, isn't it? To endeavor not to endeavor. But what it is, we endeavor, but without the false ego of taking the credit for it. When it, you know, like there's this guy playing football, and he kicks the ball, and it's like a really important part in the football game. You know, he kicks the ball, and it hits the top of the bar, so it just goes right up in the air. You know, and all the fans are like, oh, it was missed. He could have got it in the net. He kicked it too hard. It's hit the top, and it's gone right. Everyone's like, and the goalie's like, you know, to the other side. He didn't do anything, but he's like, and the other guy's like, and then the next minute, the crowd that was going, oh, and the crowd that was going, yay, suddenly they go, yay, and the other side goes, oh, and he looks up, and what's happened is the ball's gone right off, it's come down, and it's hit this clump of earth, and it's bounced in, and it's a goal, you know, and then the goalie's like, oh. And the guy who hit it, he's like that with his t-shirt. So that's the way false ego works, you know. He didn't. Well, they say when anything goes wrong, you take the blame, and when anything goes right, then it's Krishna's mercy. So the false ego, it's always in there straight away, and then it ruins everything, because then Krishna has to take away the empowerment because, oh, this is not what I'm trying to bring you closer to me. And when I bring you some success, it's taking you further away from me. So I need to put you back into situations where you're back down on your knees crying for mercy, you know. And until you can show Krishna that I can give you the mercy and you can still not take the credit for it, then I can give you so much more, you know. So endeavor is fine. But the problem is when the endeavor is passionate, then the nature of passion is that you are the center, you are the doer. So how to endeavor, like, you know, Arjuna was, he had this benediction that his quiver was, it couldn't be exhausted. So Arjuna, it was said that you couldn't see Arjuna's arm. It was so fast. All you could see was the bow and the quivers getting replenished. And it was just like this. And they were so fast that they said the arrows were touching each other. So there was one arrow and there was another arrow right behind it. It was just like so fast, just like a machine gun. And, you know, you can't endeavor more than that. That is like the flat out best you can do. And at the same time, he was aware that it was Krishna. He wasn't taking any. And then later on, Krishna took it all away. And he was completely, he lost all his power to do anything, you know. When it was no longer needed for Krishna's service, then it all went away, you know. So we may become very successful as book distributors, but we always have to remember that at any time Krishna can just pull the plug. He maybe wants you to move into another era now, where you become more internal, more into study and preaching, you know, at any point. It can be like that. So we have to be very malleable. What does Krishna want me to do right now? And if we're very afraid to do something and it's a big thing for us to do it, then for Krishna that's more significant. Because when you've been doing something year after year after year, it hasn't got the same level of surrender as someone that's doing something for the first time. You know, so it's a more significant surrender to initially jump into the unknown, you know, and try to do it. But then there's so much more reciprocation as well for doing that, you know.
So if we're endeavoring more passion is not so great, or is endeavoring more goodness, is this better?
Well, this is interesting actually, because we tend to think mode of ignorance, mode of passion, mode of goodness. And so we're thinking, do you know what? I think I'll skip that bit with the sweat and everything. I'm just going to slip over onto mode of goodness. So we're in the mode of ignorance, and then we just go. because we've skipped the mode of passion. You've got to get into the mode of passion to get to the mode of goodness. But if you maintain this, then after a while it does go like that. But you have to keep it up. So we're coming from like really low down in the modes, and in the mode of ignorance, the mode of passion is like a disturbance to us. Oh, do we have to try that hard? Do we have to work this long? Yeah, But if you can keep it going, keep that endeavor going, then eventually it starts going up into the mode of goodness, and then it's like it's not a problem. Everything's fine. You have to maintain the mode of. So sometimes we're thinking, oh, I'm fed up with this mode of passion all the time. I don't want to be passionate. But you don't get a choice to go into the mode of goodness if you don't like the mode of passion. You'll just go back into the mode of ignorance. Straight away, you'll just go straight back into the mode of ignorance. You only get the option of going to the mode of goodness if you can maintain. It's the maintenance, the regulation, and then that elevates you up onto the mode of goodness, by hard work. We think that hard work is a mundane thing, and spirituality is just like, the books just float out. Excuse me, Haribo, thank you. Excuse me. But that's book distribution about goodness. But it's hard work. But the hard work becomes spiritual after a while. It doesn't seem like hard work anymore. It's like they say, devotee asked me, how long do I have to do Sankirtan? And I said, until you want to. Because if you want to do Sankirtan, then you don't have to do it anymore. So the quicker you want to do it, the less you'll have to do it. So it's a question of your attitude. And have you ever noticed when you want to do something, it's always a lot easier to do it? Have you ever noticed that? It's like, oh, I can't really be bothered doing this. Well, why don't you want to do it? And then when you want to do it, it's like, actually, this is pretty good. If you do anything when you want to do it, it's pretty good, whatever it is. Sweeping the leaves, cleaning the car, approaching somebody with a book. The problem isn't doing it. The problem is not wanting to do it. That's the problem. You just gotta want to do it. Then it's great. As soon as you want to do it, whatever it is, it's fantastic. What causes the problem is we don't really want to do it. So we start by wanting to want to do it. Just want to do it. That's where you start. And then eventually you will want to do it. When you want to do it, that's ruchi. That's when you're getting a taste, That doesn't come so quick. You can get glimpses of ruchi. It's like, and that's why marathon is good, because the marathon pushes you to the point where it's like you don't want to sleep, you don't want to eat, you just want to stay with this ruchi, with this taste. And you're thinking, when I stop, how long is it going to take me to get back to this point again, Jai. Any last questions, comments? Yep.
There's a last part follow-up. So we're going through the modes of natures in our whatever it should be natural way. It's not something that we're endeavouring to do in our mind, thinking, okay, I'm going to get in more passion now, so we start acting like this, and it's just like a natural progression.
Yeah, when you grasp the significance and the urgency of what's taking place. I went down to a doctor's a few months ago in London. One devotee very kindly paid for, one of these top doctors, to get me checked out. And he said, I'm old school. He said, when you're doing an operation, he said, and he was with this young guy, and they had the guy's thingy open. They're doing like a bypass, so they have to cut the sternum, and then the rib cage comes open, and then they're cutting the veins and so in the back, And then the guy who was assisting him says, I've got to go now, it's 5:00. And he left him to finish off, sewing them up and then putting it back on. He said, that's what the young ones are like now. They don't grasp, as far as they can say, look, this is the job. It's 5:00. Where's Prashadam? They don't grasp, there's a guy here dying, these people are going to hell, If we can grasp the significance, then we get the urgency. Otherwise, it's 5 o'clock, I'm off, you know. Another guy was telling me in a glazing place in Aberdeen the other day, there's so much into just stopping dead on the dot. He said, you can come along and they're doing a job and the screw is half screwed in, and halfway through screwing it, 5 o'clock. He comes back and he sees the screw. Just, why didn't you just put the screw in for, you know? So you can become diverted by so many minuscule selfish considerations, and you don't see what's really going on, you know. And that's what the mind is. The mind is like the sheet of glass in the jeweler's window. So you go over and you say, what can you see? And someone can see a beautiful pearl necklace, and somebody else can see greasy marks, I was here, Jimmy loves Jane. It's all been written on the sheet of glass in Greece, you know. So if you focus on the glass, then you don't see the jewels. So when you're chanting, you have to focus on the holy name and stop seeing the mind, stop listening to the mind. When you're on Sankirtan, it doesn't matter whether it's raining or it's this or you're there. Just look at what's going on here. You know, you have the books, you have the medicine. These people need it. Try and go deeper, try and see deeper, you know. And then you'll have the urgency and you'll have the right attitude, you know. Sambandha. Once the Sambandha is there, then the Abhidheya comes in. That's where the Shiksha Guru comes in. Because the Sambandha is given to you by the Diksha Guru, and then the Shiksha Guru, he shows you how to engage Abhidheya, how to do this, you know. ISKCON Guru Ki, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Gaura Premanandi, Hari Bo. All of you, Ki Jai.